the Saudis we had an exclusive arrangement with the Saudis whereby they would value oil globally in dollars. And for the last 50 years, Charlotte, almost every country on the planet has stockpiled dollars in order to buy oil. That's created a synthetic demand for the US dollar. Now that that deal has not been re-signed by the Saudis, giving them the ability to sell in any currency they want, we are heading into what Zoltan Pozsar, one of my favorite analysts who used to work for the New York Fed, he understands the plumbing of the system quite well. He calls it Bretton Woods 3, a system that will be identified by commodities and transparency. So I guess it's important to understand that this petrodollar deal, which has given the dollar hegemony and dominance over the rest of the world because every country needed it to buy oil, is really gone. And now we transition into a new system that doesn't have to be exclusively valued in US dollars. And that's where the next chapter of the story begins. That's the thing. It's the exclusivity part of it. I mean, there always was a deal. But the deal was never that they had to value it exclusively in dollars, but they did. Now they came back and they didn't re-up the agreement, whereby they will not exclusively value oil in dollars. And they're making that known to the rest of the world. It was always assumed, indeed, that that is what the deal was. The fact that they haven't and publicly have said that we're not going to maintain, let's just call it, instead of a petrodollar deal, let's call it the exclusivity. And they really did, for the most part, 85, 90% of all oil transactions the last 50 years have been in dollars. And a country like Saudi Arabia, for the most part, has only sold oil in dollars. And OPEC has, for the most part, only sold oil in dollars. But that seems to be changing. And that changing, if you look closely, is actually happening right out from underneath us. And I'm sure we'll talk about that. But rather than calling it the petrodollar deal, let's just say that the exclusivity, the hegemony of the dollar only being the sole settlement currency for oil, those days have come to an end. BIS reclassified gold as Tier 1. All of these countries are buying the heck out of gold and repatriating it, bringing it home. Project mBridge allows for the trading cross-border payments not using US dollars. It's not compatible with it. Saudi Arabia just became a full participant in Project mBridge. The largest oil producer in the world just became a full participant in Project mBridge, turned down a meeting to go to the G7, went to the Brics meeting, and did not re-up the exclusive deal for only selling oil in dollars. And when you realize that all of these countries who are accumulating gold can create their own unit, one of the things that's interesting to note is that everyone talked about, well, how are these countries ever going to agree on a common currency? They don't have to anymore, because what Project mBridge will allow these countries to do is maintain their own monetary autonomy, their own monetary authority to build their economies from within, not being reliant upon a third-party currency like the US dollar. The gold will be held in their own borders, and if they want their currency to be accepted as part of the Brics and part of the unit ecosystem, they have to be prudent in the way that they run their own monetary affairs. So the bottom line is they all maintain their own monetary autonomy, will be able to trade with one another outside of SWIFT over mBridge, but settle in this unit token.
Did you know that central banks are repatriating their gold from the New York Fed at an unprecedented rate? Andy Schectman reveals Brics' groundbreaking plan to introduce a new settlement currency backed by gold and local currencies. This strategic move, highlighted in the Project mBridge white paper, is designed to bypass the US dollar and could trigger a collapse of the US economy. With Dilma Rousseff confirming these plans and a special meeting scheduled in September, the implications are massive. Schectman emphasizes that each Brics nation will maintain its own central bank digital currency, trading cross-border outside of SWIFT, with settlements in a common currency backed by gold. This decentralized approach ensures equal footing for all member countries, avoiding dominance by any single nation.
This unit token will be 40% gold, 60% local currencies, and will be redeemable in gold upon demand. And so when you talk about what does it really mean, it is the beginning of the end of the dollar hegemony, or of the dollar supremacy, because I would argue what we've seen over the last several months, Charlotte, that the hegemony of the dollar is gone. Because it's not the only sole settlement currency anymore. We're seeing all sorts of deals being struck in local currencies, as we talked about last time, where China is buying corn and soybeans from Brazil and paying for it in digital yuan, which is then immediately convertible on the Shanghai Gold Exchange into gold. The combined volume of the Shanghai Gold Exchange and the Shanghai Futures Exchange over the last 85, 90 days is up over 200% and has now surpassed the COMEX market in terms of volume of transactions. It's the second most important metals exchange on the planet. So what we see, this little by little by little that I always talk about, logarithmic decay, little by little by little by little by little by little by little, we are chipping away not only at the transactional value of the dollar, as all of these deals used to be in dollars, now they're not, but the settlement status or the reserve status, which has always been U.S. Treasuries, well, we've screwed that one up too because we've weaponized it. And if I don't like what you're doing, Charlotte, you can't use the dollars, but you can, and you can, and you can. And it doesn't matter what we do because we make the rules. That's grown thin, and I think it's a problem. And so by weaponizing the dollar, by doing all of these things, we have pushed this union together where now gold, if you look, not only has it outpaced it over the last 50 years, just now it's outpaced its return, but over the last 25 years, since 2000, gold has doubled the value of the 10-year treasury, the performance, with no counterparty liabilities. So when you see all of these governments buying gold, but equally as indicting is repatriating it, and realize this common settlement currency for all of these transactions in the new Brics Union, where, by the way, at the end of the Novigrad meeting just 2 weeks ago, 59 countries said we're joining, on top of the 10. You're talking the majority of human population. This common settlement currency will disincentivize the need to own and procure treasuries when you can buy gold, which not only has outperformed the treasury market both over the last 25 and 50 years, doubled it over the last 25, but has no counter liability. And the unit says you can keep the gold within your own jurisdiction. It will be independently audited, better not mess that up, but they don't even have to send their gold. So they don't need to trust one another in the respect it's a cooperative endeavor. And in order for a cooperative endeavor to work, you must perform and behave accordingly, not coercively, but cooperatively, which fosters growth and trust and all of these things, which little by little by little is becoming a real deal. And our Western media, Charlotte, they don't do a bad job of telling us what's happening. They do no job. And so most of the people that we love and care about here in North America have no idea what's coming. And you can't get out of the way of what you don't see coming. So to me, this is the rallying cry. This is what I'm passionate about, is telling people, go to the BIS website, download the Project mBridge white paper, go to the unit website, read their white paper, 50 pages long, it'll blow your mind, and you'll see that this is a real trend in motion. When Dilma Rousseff came out and said, in principle, we've agreed upon it, and this is what it's going to be. Now remember, Sergei Glaziev is the architect of this. He was in that meeting too. They said, we're so much in agreement of this that we will hold a special meeting in September in China just for the unit discussion. Well, what is in October? October, the next month, is the big Brics meeting, the big one. Now there will have been 200 meetings approximately from January 1 till October, all Brics related. Most of them in Russia, some in China, and some in other places too. But the bottom line is that they've come out and said we're going to have a special meeting in September to define all of this, potentially announcing it the month later in October. So there are no guarantees that they will do so, but what we can see is a real concerted effort to where you have the architect of all this, Glaziev, Putin, and Dilma Rousseff having two meetings at this meeting in Novigrad 2 weeks ago, and come out and publicly say, yeah, this is not just some rinky-dink politician. She was the president of Brazil and now the president of the Brics and Development Bank, and she said, in principle, this is what we're going to do. And the really important part is clarity. There won't be a Brics common currency, at least not yet. Everyone will maintain their own central bank digital currency to trade cross-border outside of SWIFT on mBridge. But for settlement, it will be in a common agreed-upon settlement currency backed by gold, redeemable in gold if need be. But ultimately, this settlement currency could end up having greater value based on supply-demand rather than just the price of gold. And that's kind of what the white paper talks about. But it will be something that you're not beholden to any one central authority. And that's the most important thing to keep in mind here. So each country has their own agenda, their own economic agenda, their own monetary agenda. so that there doesn't have to be just one currency that's dominated by the largest player like China or like Russia or whatever it may be. Everyone has equal footing at the table in this case, and that's one of the things that makes it so intriguing